Welcome back to Coding Shorts. My name is Sean Wildermuth. Today I'm going to talk about Nuxt without using Nuxt. This is a follow-up conversation to my last video about this that actually has been deprecated, and I'm going to show you a whole new way to do it that works better with other of these libraries. But first, I did want to plug my new View from Scratch course is coming up April 2nd. It'll be taught during 6 weeks, where we'll meet once a week, and then we'll have projects to do between the courses that I'll code review and comment on to help you really get the grasp of the concepts. So you can take a look at the link here on the screen. But let me give you some background. I find a lot of developers using Nuxt and even calling Vue projects Nuxt projects, or vice versa, where people are teaching things. They're like, this is how you do it in Vue, and it's really about how you do it in Nuxt. And I don't like the bloat that comes with Nuxt. It doesn't mean that there aren't projects that can really benefit from server-side generation and hydration and all of that. Nuxt is great when you're doing that. But a lot of people are using Nuxt just because they want some of the key features that makes development easier. And I've come up with 4 packages, when you put them in a project, give you about 90% of that developer experience that you like. Doesn't mean that plugins will be the same, doesn't mean that server-side generation will magically appear. These are much more about the development experience. And in the last video, I showed you how to use unplugin auto routing. And I found out later that plugin auto routing does not work well with a few of the other libraries. The things I'm going to talk about over this and the next video are how to do page-based routing, so having routing configured at compile time, using layouts with those page-based routes, introducing auto components, or having everything in the component directory registered so you don't need to import them on every page that you need them, and finally auto importing, which is going to come with some caveats, but we'll talk about that in the next video. This video we're going to introduce auto routing or page-based routing into Vue, and we're also going to add layouts and see how those work together. Ready to get started? So this is a project I've been using as my example for quite a while. If we go ahead and I think I need to install it first, which I will cut out of this video or make it really fast. Ooh, that was fast. And I'm just going to run it just so we can see what it looks like. This is just a simple customer list. Has a home and an about page. When we look at customers, we can look at the details for that customer. Really pretty simple. We do have a login page. Not a lot here. When we look at the project itself, it follows this standard pattern you're going to see in a lot of Vue projects. We have a source. That source has a main TS or JS that sort of bootstraps it all, an app.vue that is the container for everything, and then we have a list of views that we're going to plug in. Now we're using routing, so our router view here is going to be where all of those routes happen. And those routes are configured here in the router, right? Home, customers, about, and login, right? But when I'm building these applications, I'd like this sort of routing to just happen for me. Doesn't mean I don't have exceptions that are going to be in this router, but I don't want to have to do this manually every time. So let's open up another terminal. I'm going to install Vite plugin pages. This is a plugin into Vite, not to actually Vue, in order to support this. And this means that this Vite plugin actually works across a number of projects that work with Vite. This isn't limited to Vue, but we're going to be using it in Vue. So let's go ahead and add that. Now that we have it installed, we're going to go way down into our Vite config, because this is where we're going to actually use it. So I'm going to import pages from Vite plugin pages. This is the actual plugin. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to add it as another plugin into Vite. Once I have that, we can go over to our router, and let's go ahead and comment out the view we have, and I'm going to comment out all the routes we have. You could merge them, but for me, I'm just going to get rid of them. I'm going to keep everything else, because what I want to do here is just say routes. How do I get those routes? I'm going to import routes from tilde pages. This is a special import that Vue will recognize to purposely define these routes from the structure of our project. And in case you want to configure it in Vue for a different folder, is actually pages. So let's go over to our views, and I'm just going to call it pages. Right? Still have our views here, but I'm going to change the home view to index.view. Well, what does that do? Because we've made all these changes, especially to Vite, let's go ahead and open up our task here and just restart it. You could also press R, though the terminal makes it a little hard for me to do that. And now we're getting that. So you can see the URL here is just for the root of the project. And so it's looking for a page, close some of these others in here, a page called index that will be the root of it. Now what about login, right? We go to login page, it's looking at the URL that we've defined here for login. And what does it find? Login.view, and so it knows it's that name. Same for about. And so unless it's index, all of the named Vue components here are going to be treated as a route at the root level. Now what if we want this customer's view to be used as well? Because one thing we'll see if we go back to home is that this is going to complain because customers 9, it can't figure out what that actually means, right? Now we could change this so that it just goes the number 9, but I still like customers. I think it's a little bit more descriptive. So I'm going to create a subdirectory here called customers, and I'm going to move my customers view into that folder, and I'm going to rename this bracket ID bracket. Now what are those brackets for? Those brackets are saying that we're going to accept an ID because our ID controller actually pulls out a parameter called ID for us already, and we're going to tell it anytime you find a number that matches that ID, map it to this component. This is in fact the same syntax that Nuxt uses. So if you're used to Nuxt, you should be used to this same behavior. So if I do this now, I'm going and I have the same experience I had before, except I don't have to maintain all of those. And so if I go at something like about, and about, if I go to about, it just worked. But we don't actually want it to work. If we look at the router, you'll see that we had this metadata here to say, if you're going to go to about, you have to be authorized. You have to be logged in, right? So how do we accomplish this with this auto? Because this is a really common one where you're going to use metadata for some of this. The fact is I have a router before each that's checking for that and pushing them to log in if they're not already logged in, right? Pretty standard. The way we do this is actually in about, we're going to create a new section called route, and I'm going to define it in JSON, and I'm going to say there's going to be a meta object in it. So this could contain more data, but these are attached to the route, and then requires auth true, right? And so this way they become self-describing as well. What happens if we come back here and go to about now? It's going to the login page. Okay, it says we're logged in because it says log out. Should be able to go to the about page because we're logged in. And so this technique of having a route section, if you need it to add metadata or other objects to the route, this is used by the page-based routing to figure out what other things do you need to know about this route. Make sense? So now that we have auto routing, let's talk about layouts, which are pretty similar. The idea behind a layout is simply to have boilerplate around each of these pages that might have something special in them. So let's go ahead and open up that console again, and I'm going to install Vite plugin Vue layouts. Now this one is Vue specific, it just happens to be done in a Vite. And let's go back down to our vite.config. Let me get rid of that. And we're just going to import layout from Vite Vue layouts. And you probably know where this is going, layout. Right? going to add that plugin as well. And what does this plugin really do? What it does is allows you to create a directory, though where this directory is can be changed, called layouts. And if we create a new file in here called default.view, this will be the layout for every route that doesn't have a layout associated with it. So you might not want to have a default at all, but I'm going to use default, and I'm just going to do a quick template. And I'm just going to create a wrapper for it. I'm going to say border blue 600, border 2. So I'm just going to put a blue border around it. And the way this works is you're going to create an each view, which if you've used routing before, you know the magic here. We're going to place that page inside of this router view. Created the plugin so that we can deal with it, but our router still needs a change. And here we're going to import something called setup layouts. And instead of it being from v-plugin layouts, it's actually from generated layouts, virtual::generated layouts. And this is why we need the v plugin to know what those are and to figure out what the layouts are. And I'm going to call these the original routes, because I'm going to want to then create our actual routes by saying setup layouts, passing in our original routes and wrapping them. So those wrapped layouts will now become just the routes that we're going to use here. And now we can see we have that blue border on pretty much every page, right? Of course, that's on a page. Home, and even our land and sons, right? Now, you're certainly going to probably want to use layouts to do something more interesting here, but you can see where this is coming from. But what if we want more than one layout? So let's go ahead and create a yellow.view, right? And the only thing I'm going to change here is make it bright yellow. Because it's a named layout, we need to specify it. So let's go over to our customers page. And much like we did earlier, we're going to say routes, route, lang equals JSON, meta, and all the layouts use is a meta tag called layout. And I'm just going to put in the name, yellow, right? I'm specifying that this customer's ID page should use the yellow one instead. So you have a simple way of defining layouts and then defining which pages those belong to. So you can see some of the basic ideas of how you would construct a Vue app with some of these add-on features. It's pretty simple. The plugins that are out there are pretty mature. The only thing you have to sort of watch out for is some of these plugins don't work well with other plugins. And so that's why I'm sticking with the two I've defined here. In next week's episode, I'm going to show you how to do auto components as well as auto importing. Thanks for watching the video. Feel free to like and subscribe. If you have some questions about how this works or where to get the code or any of that, take a look at the description underneath the video. It'll have a link to this project. And please add comments underneath the video if you have any questions, problems, concerns, or you just disagree with me or want to tell me I'm doing a great job. Whatever you want to do. For Coding Shorts, this is Sean Wildermuth. I'll see you next time.